This conference will now be recorded.
Got it.
Got it. Okay. So the topic that I chose for today is going to be learning how to drive a manual car, as a lot of people, a lot of young generation, I should say, they love to drive with the manual. There is a need for uh, there's a lot of need for it, especially when we're talking about truck driving, CDL driving, and racing, because that's another area that a lot of young people want to join. So, and I learned my first, car. It was a manual car, so I thought I could give a pretty good training on that. On that, so I just started to write a little bit about it. Let's see. In that, so I divided the training program to two sections. One section would be the learning, e-learning, which is that could be done. The permit section could be done by the e-learning, because uh, the learner have to do the permit before they do anything else. They need to know how to basically uh, pass the permit. Permit has four different portions. One is the vision, the other one is the knowledge, the other one is the health, the other one is the vision, knowledge, health, and one more portion that traffic sign. Traffic sign was the last part. So this part is pretty straightforward, as we all know. E-learning is basically all the material is online, and the learner has to log in and study it, master it, and take the test. There are two different websites that I have available. Is the what was the website? Let me look at it. One is the nc.gov. They're both nc.gov. nc.gov. One is permit. One is the practice test, because uh, they have practice set that you can take and master the program, uh, and take the test at the DMV office. And next level will be the hands-on, which that portion we could call it. What was it? Hands-on, traditional learning that Noe talked about. Basically, you have to sit down with the mentor in the car and learned how the process should be done. So basically, first, when you sit in the manual car, you would notice that you have a steering wheel right in front of you, and then you have a seat, and then you have a shift on the right side. You have your signal shifter on the left side, and the windshield cleaner on the right side, and then you have three pedals. The left side is the clutch, the middle one is the brake, the last one is the gas. So, and most important one, you have the seatbelt. You should never drive without having a seatbelt. That will get you in trouble. And the way basically driving with the manual car goes is that uh, you have to have your seatbelt on, and you have to have your front mirror, which controls the back side, adjusted to your height. The right side mirror also, left side mirror also. The function for the left side mirror is to give you the view of left side. The function for the right side mirror is to give you the view for the right side, and the middle one is controlling the back side of the car. So you can have full control of the surrounding. So after you sit down on the car, you must put your foot on the clutch, put the shift lever on neutral, put the key in the ignition and turn it on. Your car is on. That's the first step uh, that we must practice. The second step is how to get the car running. Basically, it's done by lifting the clutch easily. There's three steps to uh, to work with the clutch. Number one, when you press it down all the way to the floor. Number two is when you lift it up to the middle. When you keep it on the middle, they call it friction zone. Friction zone is where transmission and the engine uh, they work together. When you hold it on friction zone for 2 or 3 seconds, the car starts slowly running, and then you lift the clutch, push the gas. That's how a manual car start running. That is how we get the car to run. So far, any question, any feedback, anything that needs to be explained more?
No. Very good.
Nope. Very good. Okay. Now the next step is how to shift. Uh, the process of shifting is very important, because if you don't do it right, and uh, the car would shut down in the middle of the road, and we don't want that. So how we shift is basically your car would have more than one shift. Some cars have 4 gears, one gear, two, three, four, and one in reverse, five. Some cars have six, depends on how many gears do you have. But the process of shifting is always the same. You hold the clutch down, release the gas, take your foot off the gas, shift it to the number two after one, and then leave it to the middle, so you reach the friction zone, and then release it all the way, and that will be number two. Number three is the same way. Number four is the same way. Now for the reverse, uh, it's the same process, but the direction of the shift lever might change. It goes to the back direction. And one more thing that we should take into account when we reverse with the manual car, your head always has to be turned to the back side, so you could have full view of the back, and your left hand supposed to control the steering wheel. That way you don't make any accident and any dangerous spot. Uh, any questions so far?
No.
No.
Good. I like
Okay.
the step by step. That's helpful.
Very detailed.
All right. Now, one more thing that I want to emphasize is when you come to the stop, it's very important. When you run on the higher speed, obviously you put your foot on the brake, just like any car. The car would reduce the acceleration. Now, for a complete stop, you must uh, follow the reverse order, just like you go from one to two to three to four. Now, if you're on gear four and you want to stop, so you push the brake, let the RPM gauge calm down, and then reduce the gear from four to three, and then push the brake again, let the RPM calm down, reduce the gear, three to two. Again, push the brake, let the RPM to decrease, and then two to one. When you reach the one, put your left foot on the clutch, press it down all the way to the bottom, hold the brake, the car will stop perfectly. What else? What else do I have to talk about? Oh yes, I forgot the very main important part on my speech. I'm sorry about that. Learning objective. That's what I forgot because I was very stressed. Sorry about that. I have my learning objective also, but learning objective. So the learning for this training, muscle memory is very important. So what a new learner will learn to practice in this session will be gaining muscle memory. Second one will be driving accordingly and safety, and the third one will be focus and coordinate fast. Ability to control emotion while you are behind the manual car is very, very important. If you can't control emotion or if you go crazy, you might cause some serious uh, trouble. So before you sit down behind the steering wheel, take deep breath before you do anything. I think that will work for any type of car, any vehicle, anything that you want to do. Having control on your emotion can help you save a lot of trouble. And that conclude my portion. I guess how much time did I take?
You're at, I started the timer, you're at about like 11 and a half minutes.
11 and a half minutes. Any question, any feedback, anything that you guys think as a learner you might want to know more about? I know you obviously you guys know how to drive, but anybody drive a manual so far?
No, I don't know how to drive a manual. So I like, and I
You
was
don't
trying
know?
no, I don't know how. So I was trying to envision myself like kind of in the car, learning how to
Mm-hmm.
do those things.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful.
Very
Helpful.
cool. So
All
my
right.
first car was a manual. My dad made me get a manual as my first car so that I knew how. But I drive an automatic now. So I like it's you're right. You touched on all the bits and how hitting the clutch just right. So I could picture it in my head.
Well, you
I,
see,
I liked
I
it.
tried I tried to do it so basic, so a new learner who never had it before can picture, you get an idea of how to do it. I'm not the perfect trainer, but I
No,
hope that uh, a new learner would gain some tips.
yeah, no, you did really good. I took notes that you asked for feedback at 6 minutes in, and then you asked again at 8 minutes in. So you checked on us really well. I took notes of the time, so you did a good job.
Thank you. But
Yeah.
I made one mistake because I should have talked about my learning objective first.
First, yeah.
Didn't,
I would move that to earlier on for sure, but at least you did it.
Exactly. I like that you at
I,
least
ho-
loop back around.
Yeah.
I hope that doctor would understand my mistake.
Yeah.
She will. Cool. Thank you. All
You're
right.
welcome.
You're right there. I'll stop my timer then. Do you want to go,
Uh,
Maddie? Or you want me to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Cool.
all
Yeah,
right.
I don't mind at all. Okay. Yeah, I put mine together on everybody's favorite PowerPoint, so get ready to be riveted.
Yay.
Um,
Same. Same. I did the same.
okay. Let's see. Let's see. Are you guys seeing my screen? I'm not sure how.
No, but there is you see where you share your webcam and audio, there is another button in the middle says a screen. You want to hit that screen, then we can see your screen.
Yeah, let's see. Farhad, I think it might be asking you if I can become the presenter. Are you getting any type of?
Asking Maddie to organize.
Oh,
Can you
wait, no,
make me
I'm sorry.
presenter?
Yeah. Let's
Let's see, how can I reply in private? No. Yes, I say yes. Uh, how can I make you the presenter? I'm not sure.
let's. Oh, wait.
Hit that screen button. Let me see. In the middle. You see?
Okay. Hit
Hit
it
that.
again. And it says your request has been sent. You can choose what to share after you become the presenter.
So how can I, Maddie, to organize this? How can I do this? Private. Can you make me the presenter? How can I make you the presenter? I don't know that thing.
Let's see. I know this. Well, how about this? What we can do, because I sent my presentation through.
I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah. Why don't we
Saw it.
just go off your email? Because we're going to have to do the same for mine as well.
Exactly. So we'll
That's
just
that's
tell
fine.
you.
I saw it, and we can take a look at it from the inbox. It's in the inbox. That's no problem.
Yeah.
That's
So
no
I'll just
problem.
tell you as
I'm
I'm
sorry.
moving.
That's my fault. I should have known how to organize this thing, but I'm not very knowledgeable. My fault. I'm sorry about that.
That is
No, no worries.
That is not your fault at all. That is
Not your fault at all. I don't know. I have no idea how.
right. Okay, so let me, maybe if I'm just gonna try to make it half
Okay,
the screen here.
I'm gonna be viewing your PowerPoint as you go.
Okay, great. All
Yeah, I
right.
have you. I have yours on too.
Okay.
Amazing outlook. Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, so we'll just go down each of the slides. So this presentation, I found, I don't know, it's easiest for me to kind of relate the things that we're learning to my own office and my own work experiences. So I have found that in my own department, some people can kind of struggle with staying organized with their Outlook as when they transition into leadership roles. So the learner in this scenario would be someone who's new to a leadership role, someone who does know how to use Outlook, but has not to really it has not really had a lot of appointments to attend to, is not used to having a high volume of emails come through, and people can really have difficulty with managing that. So the way I envision this is that I have the PowerPoint, but that the learners would also have their Outlook open and be kind of following along with me to sort of create certain things or click around. So yeah, so that is just something to keep in mind as we go through. Okay, so I'm going to, and this is just intended to be a basic, a couple of best practices type of thing to get people sort of started. So I'm going to move along to slide 2. Okay, so maximizing your organization in your Outlook. So why is this important for a new leader to know? You in your new role, you're going to spend a lot of your time communicating with other people to accomplish goals through Outlook. So it really is important that you are familiar enough with this tool that you can use it to your advantage a couple of hours a day at least you're going to be spending using this. And it's really important that so that you don't miss things, that you are extremely organized. So, you know, it's important that you reflect well on yourself by coming prepared to meetings, by knowing what you have to do in meeting deadlines, by responding to important emails with a sense of urgency, and also just by coordinating with other leaders, you know, and being aware of your schedule. So those are the reasons why we're conducting this quick training. And we will have basically we'll have 3 learning objectives for this training. It's going to be essentially to sort of view Outlook as a leadership point of view, using it as an important communication tool and part of your job. We're going to talk about some ways how to keep your email messages organized so that they're easy to sift through and you can respond to the most urgent items. And we're going to talk about some ways to keep your calendar organized so that you know exactly what you are doing and when you have to do it. So I'll move on to slide 3. And we'll talk about just managing email messages. And I'll move to slide 4. So there's a couple of different ways that you can, and you can kind of see in the screenshot on this slide, over on the left-hand side, you can basically create any folders that you want. So you can, and there's a couple of different ways that you can organize these. In my personal Outlook, I sort of have a mix of both items. And so and it kind of depends on how each of our brain works and what kind of personality we have of how we find it easiest to remember where we've put things. So in these folders, you can organize by people. I like to have folders for people who are basically important and who I have to do a lot of work with that specific person. So I have a folder in my Outlook inbox that is just for my manager, just for our HR representative, for our department manager, and each of my members and their direct reports. So then if there's anything I'm working on with those specific people, then I can just go back and say, okay, I know that Lisa needs this. or I know this is related to a conversation Molly and I were having. And so you can kind of look at it that way. And it also is helpful too if you do have people reporting directly to you. It is super helpful to have a folder that is just them and all of their stuff and everything that they need, so that you can be a supportive manager and help them with whatever they need. And then the other way to organize is by subject or task. This is going to be particularly important when you have certain automated reports that we receive that you are going to want to go back to look at historical information, or for a specific project that you are working on. So you can, so everything, right? For example, I'm doing all the planning for our department's busy season is coming up, right? It's almost Christmas, so as we're preparing to be very busy, everything that is related to that project is going into that same folder, because if I need to search for it again, I know exactly where it's located. So that is another way that you can, and you don't have to pick one method or the other. You can kind of just do it however it suits you and however it best lends to your particular memory. All right, I'll move to slide 5. So one thing that it's kind of a hard lesson that I learned when I started having to use Outlook a lot more frequently in my job, is that you really have to carve out a little time each day to go through your emails. So that is an extremely important item, where if you don't want to spend all of your time organizing emails, but if you don't give yourself maybe about 30 minutes each day, you can lose track and you won't be up to date on any conversations that are happening. So, and I like to just reserve the first 30 minutes that I get into the office to catch up, and I kind of know if there's anything new that I wasn't aware of that I have to deal with in that day or something like that. So you can, based on what you get, right, scan through, just do a quick look through for the most important items. If there's anything from your manager or anything that is a little more urgent than and you can kind of attend to those items first. And definitely a tactic that I use is anything that I know that I need to just get to later, I just leave it unread so I don't forget about it, or I read it and then I mark it unread again. So then I know, okay, this is still an outstanding item, and I have to get to this later. And then you can also, in the screenshot here, so the learners would be using their laptops to do this. So you can also color code these as well, to give yourself a better visual reference. And then one critical thing as well is if you need more time to look at something or to fully provide an answer for an email that you've received, please make sure that you're telling your manager about that. It is much better for you to say that you need more time on the deadline than to simply miss the deadline. It reflects much better on you to make sure you're keeping that line of communication open. Okay, I'm going to proceed on to slide 6. So, and actually, are you guys doing okay? Do you have any questions? Anything that I'm saying not making sense?
No.
Okay.
Just where do you work?
I work at the call center for NewBalance.com. Yep. It's a crazy. What?
Probably get a lot of emails.
Yes.
I can imagine.
It's like I took a trip to China a couple of years ago. I was gone for a little over 2 weeks, and I came back and I had over 5,000 emails. It was crazy. Some of those are just like automated notifications, but there was it took me probably 3 full days to go through those.
Wow.
I can imagine the level of stress that you go through.
Yeah, so it's so you can kind of see how people who are new to a role in our office, right? Like they're not prepared for the deluge.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you guys are doing good. The second half is a little shorter, so that should be a relief to everyone, I'm sure. Okay. So, all right. So managing your calendar. So there's a couple of things. I noticed that a lot of people, for whatever reason, they do not install the to-do bar on their inbox view. And it's so helpful because that basically you just see your day all the way down. And so you're not late to meetings and you don't have to flip back and forth between that and your calendar all the time to keep checking. You just have it right there. You can see it in the screenshot, and then, right, like the, learners would have their laptops ready and they would be able to, so I would have them take this time to actually install that feature if they had not already installed it, to make sure it was just there. And the other really critical item is I've also noticed that a lot of people, especially if they're not used to using Outlook for their organization, they'll have the calendar up as a month view, and that's really not helpful because you can see that there's appointments on a day, but you can't see what time they are, what they are. So I would have them pull it up and make it the work week view and have that be what they work off of for the rest of the time. And you can kind of see that in the screenshot, and that's obviously a lot more helpful because I can see exactly how long each appointment is. I can see the meeting. I can click on that and pull up the description and read it. So those are just two critical basic starting points. I'm going to move to slide 8. And then basically it's just important to use your calendar to your advantage. Use this as a tool to keep yourself organized and on track. So the first thing that I would recommend doing is, if you have a task that is going to take you a while, do not try to just do that in between your other tasks. Block time out when you know you'll be available so that other people cannot schedule over you, and that will give you dedicated time. And you can block time to sit at your desk, or you can block time to actually go into a room. I don't know, we have an open office environment, which is, helpful sometimes, but at other times you really, you're not getting any solitude to get your work done. So sometimes that's a good tactic to book a room. Make sure that your calendar is up to date for other people. So it's important to set an out of office appointment if you're not going to be here, or if every day you leave at a certain time. In this case, I would have the learners go ahead and just set that up, right? Like practice setting an out of office appointment. A common mistake that happens when we have new people join leadership is they'll often block everybody's calendar for like a whole week, and then we have to say no. So this would be a good time to practice blocking just their own calendar. If you have something on your calendar that's just as a reference and you're not really going to go to that meeting, mark it as free so you advance that time is available to you. And just following these practices just help you make sure that reminders are not going to go unnoticed, right? You're making sure that you're keeping good track of all the things you have to do. So I'm going to move to slide 9. And so really the best thing that you can do to make sure you are being a helpful and productive member of the leadership team and reflecting well on yourself is check your calendar each morning and each night. Just make sure you know what you have to do. I myself have had a couple of instances of just missing a meeting because I thought I had a handle on it, and I should have been more diligent about knowing where I was supposed to be. And make sure that you read the meeting agendas so that when you get to the meeting, you know exactly what is going to be discussed. If you were responsible for bringing something, you have it. All of that stuff. So if you follow these basics, then you should be pretty well prepared for just about anything that you need to do. All right, and I guess I'll just open it up one more time for questions. If you have anything that I could have explained better, or definitely would love to hear feedback.
It was perfect.
That was really, really good. No joke.
Honestly, it was perfect.
The screenshots are outstanding, and I didn't even know there was a to-do bar, so I'm going to install that.
Oh, yes, I am all about the to-do bar. That to-do bar is so helpful.
Yeah, I think that the screenshots, especially at the folder section, I like that you included that in your PowerPoint series. It's like a PowerPoint on steroids. You had like the customizable recommendations, and I think it's cool that you shared your real life experience, the China story. I think that made it like a really cool, well-rounded presentation, honestly. Really cool.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys.
For me.
All right.
All right,
Hey,
cool.
Ripley, we're ready.
All right, let's do it, guys. It doesn't recognize my face. I need to start my timer. Okay. Okay, cool. So I sent you guys my PowerPoint, and I'm going to follow along with the paper version. So I did mine on the importance of engagement. Specifically, we can go on like to the second slide. So I chose engagement kind of from, I don't remember what class it was. I'm sure you guys remember. Peter Block's book, Flawless Consulting, has been like my Bible. Do you remember this?
Yep.
I don't know what class this was. It was like 3 semesters ago or whatever.
Yeah, that's such a book.
I've like ruined the book. I read it so much. So it's been my Bible, and so I do some freelance consulting. And I was doing it before that class, and I've been doing it after. And engagement is one where I had a recent experience where I was conducting an intervention with a company, and I had really utilized what he talked about with engagement because it was something that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to, and it was pretty crazy. The changes that it made in terms of my presentation for my discovery, and so that's why I thought it would be very helpful for you guys as IELTS professionals. I stayed in the lane of school, but it's going to be really boring. So that's that. Slide number 3. So I want to touch before I get to the objectives on what I mean by engagement. So engagement is basically the level at which your client organization and its people are genuinely invested in your findings and or like the proposed changes that you're making. The most technical content or important business decisions, they're not going to happen in any company if there's no interaction with the client system, if you're not really looking at what's going on and how they're vibing it out. Nothing that you say or the hard work that you spent 2 months on, it's just going to kind of go in one ear and out the other if you really don't have actual genuine engagement. And it's difficult to not only get it, but to recognize it and to work for it. So consultants, they kind of help leaders engage others in implementing decisions by following just like a few basic principles. So these are kind of like the prerequisites to keep in mind for the rest of the presentation. They need to have a deep understanding of the problem. There needs to be a clear expression of their wants, what it is that you're doing there. You're there for support. They trust you, that kind of a thing. You're kind of treating each interaction, no matter how minor it may seem to you, it's still a learning event. So you're very professional, like you're kind of the epitome of the goals of what you want that organization to be. You're designing each gathering to strengthen engagement. So at each point, you are kind of focusing on like, okay, how are you guys feeling about this? You're constantly keeping a pulse on it is what I say. So you're always holding a pulse, and there's a balance between presentation and participation. So that's kind of like the back burner, and then we're going to jump into it. Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. The objectives, slide number 4, is for the learner to have a developed understanding about the importance of engagement. The second objective is the ability to apply the material to any client consultant project. So it's very malleable in that way, it's customizable. The third objective is for a deeper value to be placed on the important ways poor engagement can really hinder a well-made intervention. So poor engagement means whatever you worked on for those 2 months, it's just flushed, it's gone. So that's the third objective. And the fourth one is the ability to take the material provided to the learner and customize it in your own way. So whether it doesn't even need to be a client consultant role, it can be any kind of situation in which you're trying to engage something or describe something or relay an important conversation, you need engagement. Even if you're ordering dinner, if they're not engaged, they're going to get it wrong, kind of thing. Okay, slide number 5, the value of engagement. So very important. So as a consultant, you just have to have that ability to raise client awareness about the value that your suggestions carry when you're implementing a suggested intervention. So everything down to like your tone and the structure, everything is going to be judged at that point by those team members. And the way in which you're judged during any kind of conversation, that's also kind of going to be the shadow that's cast on any kind of strategy or any kind of credibility that you're bringing to the table. So engagement kind of carries a lot of weight. It has a lot of power, far arguably, for what Peter Block says, more power than the recommendation you're making itself. You can be making a crap recommendation, but if they're really engaged, they're going to do whatever. So it can even be tipped into that kind of a scale, which I think is really interesting, and it's quite true. Any questions?
No.
Not yet.
Cool. Slide number 6. So there are, I changed his just because I'm not Peter Block, obviously. I'm not at all. So I chose 7 ways to engage, and I kind of switched it up and made them my own for my own, like, imaginary learning situation here. So I did 7 of them. They're just practical ways to engage people regardless of any pre-existing biases. They're like, you're confronting emotional obstacles, you're confronting any kind of relationship building work, and they're helpful for success quite a bit. We can skip slide number 7, is just listing them out. We're going to go right into slide number 8. The first one is to open with a transparent purpose and a level playing field. I like this one. When you start any kind of a gathering or this conversation, you want to describe the concerns that initiated the intervention to begin with. It gets everyone on the same page. Basically, why the heck am I standing in front of you? You know, they're not confused. They understand what's going on. You also want to define where the change efforts are at that moment. You don't know at what point necessarily each one of these, whether in my case, it was only a small organization, it was 5 people. So there was really 4 out of 5 of them were on the same page. The 5th one was just kind of confused. So I wanted to make sure like everyone knew what was going on. So they maybe don't know if you're almost done. They don't know if you're just starting, if you're in the middle. So where you are in that moment, again, it gets everyone updated, and it shows that you're being transparent and you're kind of an honest, like, third-party objective person. The key is to tell the whole story here. Don't protect people from bad news. Be candid, be honest, keep it short and formal, speak from the heart. And what I really like here that I found helpful, I was that epitome of what he calls the cheesy, upbeat, motivational person. And that's just, it's almost patronizing and demeaning to people. So just stay away from those. Don't give those like cheesy one-liners. Don't say like, work hard, all that kind of, like, just be candid. And I like that. So I thought that was kind of a really cool way to start it off. Okay. So slide number 9. Renegotiate expectations about participation. So I think that this is kind of a really interesting topic. So he kind of mentions basically as participants, we are just kind of programmed to just sit and absorb. And at the end we go, how did I do? When there's really no give and take on how many times have you been asked, like, how many times did you give feedback or that. So I think it's really cool to kind of sit and say, listen, this is a whole different ballgame. I want a lot of feedback. This is what's going to happen. And renegotiate the expectations. It's a passive contract between leader and participant. It needs to be kind of reassessed rather dramatically to where success kind of depends on what you guys are giving me. So if you, hypothetically, you were an organization of 2 people, it would be wouldn't really work very well if I just sat and talked for 3 hours and had you guys nodding and then there was nothing, and then and at the end I go, how'd I do? You know what I mean? So I think it's cool to bring that down to like almost a micro versus macro scale and have that kind of an agreement right off the bat. So do you guys agree?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Awesome. All right, slide number 10. Create a platform for openness and doubt. So this is number 3 of 7. So it's basically your responsibility to create an assembly where everyone's comfortable expressing how they feel. Everyone is not afraid of you. You're not this evil individual. If they have questions, concerns, it can be spoken to you directly or in an open setting. And he has a lot of really cool pieces about that, just being that supportive role. And in some cases, and this is what I added in with my experiences, I wanted to make sure it was like a comfortable setting. And so I was very actively involved, and I had to actually engage them. Like 2 of them were very, very, very like outspoken and this and that. And then the other 3, I was kind of like, okay, to where I felt comfortable enough. I was like, let's talk to you now. You 2 need to just be quiet for a little bit because I need these ones over here to actually like feel comfortable and engage. And I wanted to honestly know their genuine feelings about what it was that I was mentioning. And so sometimes you have to really hold the reins on it and force participation and kind of keep it nice and balanced, but you have to keep a pulse. Again, you have to keep a pulse. It's all very different depending on the scenario and all of that. Cool. Number 11, So I like this one a lot, asking, what do we want to create together? So this is the question on which real accountability hinges. So there's two parts, the question of creation and the question of together. So this is another way that we confront people with their freedom, asking what they want to create, what the goals are. It kind of forces the issue. It just brings it to the spotlight. And so that's that create piece. When you ask, in effect, what could we create together that we cannot create alone, you're asking for that next level of collaboration, which I think is the platform on which change is the only way it can happen. So you have to collaborate. Everyone has to be on the same page. It's all kind of the building blocks of what brought us to this point. So what are we going to do that you couldn't do on your own? You know, how are we going to work together and collaborate and work and accomplish the reason why I'm standing here, which is the goal that brought me here, kind of thing. Any questions?
No.
What do you guys think? Yes,
Awesome.
no, maybe so. Garbage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You have that book packed down. That's what I'm going to
I
You have that book packed down. That's it.
I'm really glad that you used that as kind of like a starting point, because I loved that book as well. It was so good.
So good. I'm so glad. I nerded out hard. Awesome. I'm glad you guys liked it as much as I did. I like how he writes too. He's a no BS kind of like author. So cool.
Easy to understand. Yeah.
Very easy to understand. He dumbifies it for the common folk, and I like that.
I'm like, oh, I need that.
I get that. All right, cool. So slide number 12 is number 507, creating a new conversations. So old conversations lead to old actions. So really pushing the point that your intervention marks an organizational change to be taken seriously. This is like where you alpha up and you're like, this is a whole new conversation. This is happening from this point forward. This is like from, you know, BC to AD kind of thing. So the challenge is to have task-related conversations that they hadn't had before. And I carried this over from my Abercrombie days, and I was a manager in China, and like it was very task-oriented. It was very specific. There were no vague directions given. It was boom, boom, no questions asked. I needed to ensure that they understood it. And that comes over right into this one, number 5. Very, very, very clear-cut, concise direction. Slide number 13, number 6 is choose commitment and accountability. This is kind of cool when you are assigning bits and pieces. You want to be optimistic that there are genuinely conditions in which people do want to be accountable. Like they want to set high goals. They want to care for the well-being of the organization as a whole. And they do want to know how they're doing. They expect feedback. And so too many organizations kind of like manage accountability, and that's like with incentive schemes, and that just is like kind of a domino effect of garbage. So that's why we like to just choose commitment and accountability. Next slide, number 14, and the final one is focusing on the value added by the participant. So wrapping it up with it is, I think there's a really genuinely, it holds a lot of weight to bring closure to a meeting by recognizing accomplishments and participation and calling out outstanding bits of value added by your audience. So I think that that's really cool to take a moment and acknowledge that. So many, and I was born and bred in the culture through my company for the first 10 years of this is your weakness, this is your weakness. And it's quite debilitating. And Peter Block goes on pages and pages about it. And it's kind of cool to really just stay positive and not focus and kind of keep them in the mindset of change and opportunity and that sign. So that's his 7 steps. Do you guys have any questions?
No, that's really good.
That was basically a summary of 2 months. back to back. Great job. 15
minutes and 59 seconds of that whole semester.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know,
it was excellent. It was excellent. I just refreshed my memory of all those 2 months. Yeah. Thank you. That was excellent.
Yeah, it really is good. Like visually, it's really very polished looking. Clearly, you took a lot of time to make sure that it felt very professional. And I really liked that you, I liked that you picked out the bits of like making sure that you're collaborating, that you're not just telling. That was a huge thing that I had taken away from that book. And then and I love slide 14. I think that's my favorite because I just am finding like people need praise. They really need praise. Like,
awesome.
yay!
I'm so glad. Thank you so much, you guys. Great job. We got it done. Our midterm's good.
Woo!
Yeah.
I know. I will. So I'm thinking like probably tomorrow I'll like get your guys's sheets filled out and back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're good with
Cool.
that. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll get it. Farhad, I didn't check my email necessarily. I don't know if I got yours. I have Maddie's, but
I haven't done mine yet. I
Cool.
haven't done. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll send it to you
I'll do
tomorrow.
it right then and I'll send it back.
Any more question in regard to my presentation portion?
No.
Very good.
When you
Was
have
it
the
good?
presentation put together, like the visuals, like send them over. I would love to see what they would have like.
No,
Gotcha.
really good job, and thank you for organizing.
I am going to stop recording at this point, but it will not disconnect.
Thank you.
I'm just going to pause the recording.